We will move on to 11.4. And we're talking about the adoption of the 26-27 Development Contributions Policy. Welcome, Ben. Note that we have dealt with this a couple of times already through hearings, and now we're looking at adopting.
Yeah, good afternoon, that's right. I'll take the report largely as read because it is pretty short and sweet, but happy to answer any questions on it.
Have we got any questions for Ben? So I do note the Deputy Mayor is online to join Councillor Karak. No questions? If we've got no questions, thank you, Ben. We will ask for a mover and seconder for the recommendations. Councillor Morris is happy to move. Got a seconder? Councillor Crowther. Any discussion? No.
I'll just say that I'm looking forward to the LTP development contributions discussion. I think great chance to get our teeth into a bit of that, but bearing in mind that the whole developer levy scenarios are all going to change, so we'll see where we get to.
All right, I'll now put that to the council. All in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Right, 11.5, we're now talking about the January weather event recovery progress report. I note these are regular reports to touch base with our community, let people know what's been happening, and I'll hand over to Charlie to give us a brief update. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kia ora, and thank you for the opportunity once again to present this update. We'll take it as read, but the recovery program continues to track well, with solid progress across all work streams and 3.3 million invested to date, which is in the last part of the report. While we are seeing momentum, the work remains dynamic, particularly as we respond to weather events and evolving geotechnical risks and the exploration of options across the city. Our primary focus continues to be mobile remediation and beyond remediation. We've made good progress on the summit track, which is now moving towards reopening readiness and those conversations. At the same time, new slip activities and increased risks on the ocean side mean we're adapting our approach in real time. Planning for the base track remains complex and is being carefully worked through with technical experts in close partnership with and direction from Ngā Pou Tiri Ao. Across the wider program, there are no current welfare needs and most public spaces are open, with clear systems now in place to manage risks during adverse weather. We do intend to apply more time and focus on Mangatawa in the coming weeks, but I can provide assurance that this does not mean that investigative exploration across the city has stalled, whilst our gaze has been firmly on Moao. A key shift in recent weeks has been the implementation of a more structured communications and engagement approach with high-level public interest, particularly in Moao. We're now delivering consistent updates across multiple channels alongside a growing program of community engagement. This is improving transparency and ensuring community voices are helping shape the recovery decisions. In summary, we're making steady progress, managing risks actively and maintaining a clear focus on safe, sustainable recovery outcomes. Happy to take any questions, and I've got Nick here as well.
Kia ora, Charlie. Just a question from me. I just note in the committed expected expenditure for June 26, we still have security at 138,000. My understanding was we were reducing that. I just wanted to get clarification around that.
Yeah, that's still sitting at an anticipated spend. You are correct. We have reduced the security to 3.5 security guards from 7, and that was off the back of the enabling of the power supply to the hot pools and parts of the Oceanside campground as well. So CCTV footage is assisting with that ongoing security. We expect that over the coming months that will we'll be able to give some accurate sort of data on what that.
Okay, so that's not an accurate figure necessarily as expected for June.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks for the report, Charlie. Question for Marty. We've got a number of staff that have sort of moved into this recovery team. How are we coping with their BAU that they've been taken away from?
We we haven't backfilled these positions as such, and so we're trying to manage that largely from within existing budgets. So it's putting a bit of pressure on some areas. One in particular, I think probably Emily's role is one that I think Spaces in Place are probably struggling to manage.
Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, Charlie, roughly what sort of split would there be in terms of the 3.9 million of actual and committed spend to June that would be non-MOA related?
Oh, if I told you, I would be guessing. If I answered that question, I would be guessing. I can find out. So
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know if it's like closer to, I mean, I have no idea, but closer to 5% or 30% or,
Yeah.
you know, I presume most of it's the amount, but I don't know what those...
yeah, I would confidently say that the majority of it is mobile, but I
Yeah.
can't break that down into figures.
And then the other one is it possible without adding extra workload to just get a bit of an update offline on the Otamote, Bellevue, Bethlehem? In my case, I'm interested in those yellow sticker scenarios because I know there are still people who are contacting me from time to time around that. And I haven't really done justice to following up on them all, so might be a quick way to get an action point if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. Councillor Roseboom.
Thank you, Mayor. Not sure if this is for Charlie or for Marty. Can we include in this where we're going with the hot pools? Does BVL have more concentrated access? Have they started any remediation work on the pools? Because the community's quite keen to know where's the pools at. I know it's not quite on the mount, but an update on where we are with the Mount hot pools.
Yeah, absolutely. What I can say is that they've completed their, I can't remember the acronym, but their site-specific safety plan in terms of the ability to go in and start to investigate what remediation of the pools looks like. So we'd be quite happy to provide updates both in your weekly reports and in the next council report as well.
Just a quick follow-up, just add it to what's on here. You've mentioned hot pools, but you just haven't said what's actually happening with the pools. Yeah. Thank you.
Right, any further questions? If there's no further questions, thank you, Charlie and Nick, for being here and answering questions. This is just a receive. So if I got a mover and seconder to receive, Councillor Roseboom, Councillor Baker, any discussion? All right, so thank you to Charlie for his efforts and all the recovery team. And then I'll put receives the report January weather event recovery progress report to the council. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Right, 11.6 long-term plan 2027-2037 issues list. We've got Christine Jones to talk through this.
So this is the issues list which you have had previously at an earlier meeting where you endorsed it. Then we did a workshop with all of these topics and we asked for some informal feedback to sort of gauge which ones had majority support and where there were other matters. So this report brings together all of that. Some elected members raised issues, additional issues, partway through the conversation, so we don't know of those ones whether or not there's majority support from you or not, so that's something you might want to, if there's a view you want to add anything. The other topic that was added in was at the city delivery meeting on the 16th of June, you had a conversation about wanting to have community grants and funding to external organisations added in. At that time, the agenda had already been finalised, but it seemed like there was majority support, so you might want to add that in as a topic. So we've noted it, but we was too late to include it in the schedule. So happy to take any questions on any of these, and then once you've given us your direction today, we'll then start to get these all scheduled in for briefings, and we're looking to set up specific council long-term plan council meetings so that those meetings are solely dealing with LTP issues, to bring these papers up to you for direction. When they come for direction, all of them will still be subject to the overall prioritisation, so you do make a series of individual decisions on each of these issues, but in making those decisions, you're not putting them into the final draft. You're saying this is our position on this particular topic. Then we want all of those topics to come back together, and then you look at that total picture, and you still then may choose to include, exclude or modify any of those, but at least it's got your view on what you would desire to have in your LTP if you can fit it all in. So they all would be still subject to decisions.
Right, is there any questions for Christine? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Christine, and the team involved. I'm just have a curiosity question. Is there an exercise worth pursuing, considering what the future of local governments could look like for us? With the likes of Western Bay to kind of harmonise and synergise some of these things to make that potential merger easier? Like, I'm looking at one of the obvious ones here is sub-regional parks that we share. Is there something, are there projects like that if we don't already, can work collaboratively that almost become a copy and paste when that happens?
So we do work collaboratively in terms of all of the growth projections that will come to you. It comes in the next LTP workshop as the assumptions are all lined up with smart growth, and there's agreement between the councils at a staff level, and they come through, and obviously all the growth planning is done. It's a little bit like when we were doing the waters in the last LTP. You have to make an assumption, and until you've got something more definite, your assumption would probably be that this is still an LTP for Tauranga City Council as it's currently formed. If there's government decisions prior to sort of December when you're saying to pull it together, it would still be Tauranga City Council. And if it's not, then we'd have to pivot. So yes, we could, and you'd be noting it in your assumptions, and if there's particular things we would be working on them together, we would certainly try to do that. And we do that anyway at a staff level, is to work together. But like Waters last time, we just had to pivot, and we might have to add some additional disclosures. But likely the first 3 years are going to be relatively similar, and it's probably the further out years that are going to be more impacted by Head Start or any other type of local government reform.
Deputy Mayor, did you still have a question?
I did, thank you. Thank you, Christine. So just a few of the issues I've asked about, how I described an issue and you or Jeremy or someone said, yes, that fits into what we've described in line so-and-so. If that's sometimes not the case, can we add a process that does allow for other issues to be raised? If we've assumed that it's fitted in, but it actually wasn't part of the way it was described, I don't want to close off the loop now to say there's nothing else we want to consider. So is that a normal process, or do we need to allow for that in the resolution?
No, it's a normal process, and I think the report that we put up last time talked about being a live list, and we'd certainly see it as a live list, and things might come off or on as you go along. There'll be decisions that you'll make, but at least this gives us a 95% piece work plan that we can then start getting on with, and things will always crop up, and you just need to give us direction and say we want that added into the issues list, like you did the other day with community grants. It just happens to be for this resolution, but if this came up in the next meeting, we'd pick it up and go, yep, great, we'll add it to the list, and we'll just come back and get some confirmation on that. So definitely a live list.
So for example, if the finance working group came up with something, then what would be the process that gets on the list? Because I guess we don't want random of us just adding to the list. Do we need to put a process in place? How do you envisage that's managed?
We envisage that probably what we'll start doing once these things start, we'll be bringing an update every maybe 2 or 3 months that just says this is where these things are at. almost just an update. These ones are in train, these ones are coming to you this date, these ones are getting completed, and at that point you can add any more onto them. So just a bit of an LTP process update.
And so the right size in the organisation, which Craig Rice talked about in the annual plan discussion, you're happy that that's covered in the looking at zero-based budgeting and operating costs?
There's two that relate to that one.
If you're happy that the that's great.
Number 13 deals with that, and it's a sort of consequence of the others. So once you've given some direction on the other elements which define what the organisation needs to deliver, then we can look at what does the organisation shape and form need to do that. So it's to the latter tranche. It's not an earlier tranche, but certainly yes, it's under number 13. And I'm looking at Craig, and he's nodding that that's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Right, is there any other questions? I've got a couple. Just on theme 3, which is the new topics. So, yeah, I guess A and B potentially could be almost part of 1. I think I didn't understand D, what that was, work with LGA to review financial covenants, wasn't?
Are we on?
424 of the main agenda,
Oh, okay.
or it's page 3 of the item.
Perhaps I could help.
So, Councillor Kura, yeah.
Yeah. I added that in there. Just while at the moment we seem to be comfortably within the financial constraint that the funding agency has in terms of the debt to revenue ratio, when we start talking about, like you mentioned, particularly like operational savings, resizing, and other perhaps tweaks to depreciation, because we are in a cost of living crisis, so we want to minimise the operational revenue, like rates, but at the same time we want to build important stuff, for the city in terms of infrastructure to enable housing, for instance, and that's on the debt side. So, potentially, and we're looking at shifting the waters debt, and so we might lose those covenants. What are they called? The bespoke covenant. Yeah, which is 350 with the margin, headroom margin, and we potentially could be really pushing that boundary, and it will limit what we can achieve in terms of designing a 10-year plan. We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty out there with what's happening, and we might, for instance, want to choose to do more shovel-ready projects to help the economy and deliver more infrastructure that's really needed for housing. And I don't want to be limited too much by that constraint. And so I thought, if the organisation can have a good understanding of where the agency is and discuss with them. For example, we could be going into a period of stagflation where we want to sort of stimulate the economy and spend more, because, we have a cost of living crisis. We haven't got a debt crisis. So, it's around minimising that risk of constraint that will stop us doing or adding stuff into the 10-year plan. So, I don't think it's a big job, but just that the organisation keeps in touch with the agency and particularly around what we want to achieve if it becomes a real problem for us.
Perhaps
Right, Councillor Morris.
Interesting. No, I was pressing the wrong button. Thank you. Couple of questions. One relates to item number 36, which is the community stadium on the Domain.
and the recommendation is not to proceed with a paper on that. That's a relatively specific topic in a relatively specific location. If there was another location council was to consider, would removing this from the LTP prevent that work stream from happening in a timely way?
Sorry, are you ahead? I think that's the next one, isn't it?
I'm way ahead of everybody, yeah.
This is the issues and options, it's not,
Mine and Daniel.
No, he's on.
it's on the cap.
Page 429.
429.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
No, it's the next. Oh, okay, sorry, it's in the,
I'm losing faith in my own sanity
So-
here, team, am I
yeah.
right? I'm good. So, yeah.
Yep. So this is
And in the meantime, you see,
So this specifically relates to the Commission when they adopted the current LTP in the 33 to the year 2033 to 2034, they put in $90 million for a stadium, and they had an underpinning assumption, 50% externally funded and 50% council was thinking at the time. That's not something that you have had shown any interest in wishing to pursue, and it is existing in the way it is. Like, there was a whole business case done around that, etc. So we're saying our understanding is that that's probably not something on the radar. Have we got that right? Because if it was, we would need to do more work, bring you back an issues and options paper, and understand and get a decision as to whether or not that remains in. If it remains in, what would be the funding package, what would be the scope of the project, and that sort of stuff. And so that's really saying that particular project is what we're suggesting would come out based on what we've sort of perceived. We're trying to get the measure of how we got that right. If you were looking at an alternative proposal, I think you would add that in as a new line because it's quite distinct from what's currently sitting in the current LTP. Yeah.
I think when we get to the next item, we talk about the potential as a rescope, so.
Sorry, just in terms of order, is this the appropriate paper to do that? Because we don't, without breaching confidences and things, is it the appropriate time to signal in this paper that the council would like to explore a cost-effective proposal on an alternate site?
Yep.
And second question, if I may, Mayor, and it relates to rotary seals team. We passed a resolution whereby council was going to consider the road reseals policy, and this resolution today would rescind that. My personal view, and this is where I'm doing the foreshadowing part, is that we have not reviewed that topic adequately. I think that the proposal that went out at the time of the resealing in Papamoa was not fit for purpose, and we can do better. So my question is that officers' understanding, my interpretation of the paper is that officers are putting to council that we've canvassed the option and we've decided not to proceed.
So this was an executive recommendation, then we canvassed elected members informally just to get a bit of a feel for, is the list complete and what's your views on it? Our interpretation from that informal scanning is that there also was a level of support from some elected members not to proceed, and that's here. This is your decision time to actually say, yep, we agree, we do not proceed, or alternatively, if you wanted to do an alternative, then when you do resolution, if you're comfortable with the resolution, you'd just say with the following amendments. So under B, you would add, correct, you'd add that in, yeah.
Okay, Mayor, foreshadowing that when it comes time to the resolution, I would seek leave to move, maybe as an amendment in terms of order for the speed of the meeting, adding number 35, but also an alternate 36 around potential community stadium options.
Yep. All right, do you want to draft something up for that while we're talking? I just want to canvass the room for the new topics. I think we should just go through them briefly to see whether there's any want to include these. So, review of how overheads need to reduce if capital spend reduces. Operating costs of 306 million are unsustainable. So, as I said before, I think those two potentially go together. Have we got any support that we want to do that? Add those.
I certainly do, but I don't know whether that just comes into the review of costs, operating costs.
Yeah. Okay, we might park those in the fact that the zero-based budgeting, a lot of what we're doing, but I think we need to keep that at the front of mind, that that's where we're going if we can't satisfy that through other processes. Use of 90 Devonport Road. Again, what's our view? Is it something we want to look at during this process?
That should come under the cost, the cost of running the city council. So I think it's I would have thought that absolutely needs to come in. I would have thought, but that's a cost we're incurring, and we have to say, can we cut that cost in some way?
Yeah. So, okay, well, I think that maybe does fit into the rest of the costs. So, yeah, Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, given the local government restructuring thing, that this building will obviously become a big part of that discussion, depending on which way we head. So, yeah, potentially it should be on the list, even from that point of view.
Yeah.
Yes, it might fit in two buckets.
Yeah. Okay. So, don't know how we deal with that to add or.
So what we could do is, I'm just trying to find the page now. It's in the list that's on 11 of 11 in the separate, if you look at just an item, LTP issues, process and non-issue specific matters, and in there we've got activity plans, which includes zero-based budgeting. What we could do with those points that you've raised, because they should be dealt with through the activity area work that each budget manager does and the zero-based budgeting work that each budget manager does, we could just put a little bullet point underneath that and say includes the following. Cool. And so then it still sits there as a check, but it's not a separate whole process. It gets blended in.
Yeah.
And then when those activity area plans come to you, we're presenting them by activity, the relevant managers will make sure they cover those bullet point items off if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah. Okay. And LGFA financial covenants, as Rick sort of explained, is that something?
Christine, you're about to comment after I explained what I was seeking. Have you got some input to that?
Just looking at Catherine and Craig as well, my thinking is that you would pick that up as part of your overall financial strategy, which you need to do, and it sits in the list of the other processes that we need to do as part of the LTP. So again, we could just add a little bullet point there as a reminder that you specifically want to look at LGFA covenants and arrangements. Catherine's nodding, so that we don't lose the point, but it doesn't need a whole separate work stream. It gets incorporated into that one.
Absolutely, thank you.
And then how we look after marae and tauranga.
Just for clarity, that was about the insurance-y type question, eh? Is that
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess so.
Māori? I think we had a yarn. I can't recall if it was a committee, a joint tangata whenua committee or a council one, where.
I think it was the tangata whenua when we went out to talk.
Oh, but there was a. You said you were going to look at insurance, something around insurance. Is that what that point is? Sorry, I should ask CJ. What are we talking about there?
There was one request from Mangatapu, I think, and that is specifically on the list that came through. Remember, they had sort of given you a letter thinking there would be an annual plan submission process this round, and there wasn't. So that got added in as a specific item. number 32, and I think there was some conversation that are there any other matters on other marae that need to be sort of considered at the same time, but that's the only thing I had interpreted, so I was, similarly, you wasn't really clear about
I
what
think
this
the
was.
whareroa part is that sort of potentially got some impacts in the long-term plan, so, yeah.
Could make that a bit more general around marae and just have underneath it the Mangatapu one and the whareroa one, and that would pick those two up.
All right, no, that's good. Councillor Carrack, did you still have anything further, or did your question get answered?
That was it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Baker.
I think I've had this question answered before, so sorry, but point 23 on not the main agenda, so page 8, the revocation of State Highway 2 Bethlehem, can we just say no to that? Damn.
It does need a issues paper, really, so that you can understand the consequences. So the maintenance and renewals and depreciation, you need to make a decision, are you funding depreciation, yes or no, and it's not a small amount of money. So the team are working to see if they can get more subsidy, given the tolling is pushing state highway traffic still onto that road, so it's doing both a local road and a state highway function. So the idea of this issues paper is to bring this all together for you so you can see the scale of it and where you might want to lobby, advocate, or have conversations, potentially through your city deal mechanism, around what's fair and reasonable.
Take out the bridge, that'll stop the traffic.
What would be fair and reasonable is for a toll-free period to establish the number of vehicles which choose to use the local road as a state highway.
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Rolleston.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor. Yeah, just coming back to that overall, how we look after local marae. I was just trying to get my system back up and running. I think I might have plugged that in. So there are bespoke solutions that we're working with Whareroa and maybe Mangatapu, but it's things like emergency management and a number of areas that marae are providing. So it's not here's a solution per se, but what support could we give to those marae? And I think that's why I was sort of putting it on our radar more to speak, not to say they need this, but I think at the last weather event we saw the support come in significantly, and I understood they were sort of trying to cobbling together support for them. So that's probably just a little bit more context there.
Cool. All right, Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, Christine, in terms of resilience, is that somewhere in the LTP sort of built in, or do we need to specify that whole conversation? I might have just missed it on there.
There's one under number 11, which is natural hazard management and council's future approach. So it's in there, but also you've already, when you signed off the climate action plan stocktake, at that time you passed resolutions that supported resilience being incorporated into planning, and so that should be flowing into like transport's planning for their projects and should come through the activity area plan. So those resolutions have been passed and be incorporated and built in when those budgets come through.
So through the chair, would it be fair to sort of say that we have willingly brought into a process that along with sort of risk tolerance will heavily influence the cost of certain projects? Because I guess my reason for my question is I wonder, in the same way that we're learning a little bit more as we go about the cost of dealing with risks, that's a different equation as well, right? Because you sort of have the immediate health and safety risks and other risks, but then you also have the long-term resilience costs, and all of those will be putting pressure upwards. And at the same time, I know this is not really a question, but you can say yes or no if I'm on track. But at the same time, we're directing staff to reduce costs. So am I kind of summarising that appropriately?
You are, and I'm sort of looking at Jane, but there is a workshop on the can't remember, sorry, 2nd or 3rd of July on, that's workshop 3, LTP issues 3. And part of that, we're having a conversation with you about how do we cost capital projects and how do we scope capital projects and what are the stage gates for those capital projects to go through to get into the LTP. So that conversation that you're raising there would be, because that relates to the whole of the capital program, whereas this is trying to get sort of individual issues. So that would be exactly the place for that conversation to happen. So it is, and yeah, Jane's nodding at me and so is Mike, so it was Renica and Jane that have been working on this. It's coming to executive, I think, next week and should flow to you on that 2nd or 3rd of July.
Councillor Schuler.
Just before I start, I'd like to quickly get Hautapu Baker's comment struck from the record about State Highway 2. No, I'll be conflicted when that one comes. But I suppose my question, a small Councillor Crowther preface to this, about just a strategic alignment and focus, and I think, and I'm going to go back to Councillor Morris's comment about the community stadium on the Domain. So thinking about, and thinking, in the next paper we're talking about some of our prioritisations. From my perspective, finishing what we've started is a very important thing. City revitalisation is a critical part of what's been chosen to be done and is what is being done to restart the city. And we see that in Te Manawataki o Te Papa and everything that's happening there. So my question around the stadium at the Domain specifically is, when this recommendation is to not proceed, and obviously if it's based around funding, when the concept of the city centre revitalisation was first mooted, how important was that as part of this equation to get the city centre humming and create the amenity that we need?
Better place to, because he worked more closely with the Commission on the stadium. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor, I was distracted. Could you ask the question again, please?
Well, I can't even remember. I spent so much time Councillor Crowthering at the start. No, the question is, we have a city centre activation and implementation plans sitting below the strategic alignment and focus of this council and the city. And my question is, we're spending a lot to create a city centre that is going to provide the amenity that this community needs. It also includes decisions around memorial. It also obviously includes what we've chosen to do in completing at Te Manawataki o Te Papa. It includes getting that waterfront done. My question is, how central was the stadium to the thinking of the strategic thinking to turn the city centre into the best in the country? And then if, depending on that answer, I might have another one.
It was a large component of that. So there were eight precincts, and one of them was a sport and recreation precinct. The idea and the reason for the stadium being located in that particular position was so that it would support inner city vibrancy, support businesses, and create concentration in a place where actually it was desired.
So this will be a question for my fellow councillors to listen to. So how much of a hole does it leave, or with where we are getting to, are we happy with what is left without that, still going to deliver on what we need to do?
Was that a question for councillors or for me?
No one else is going to answer.
If we put community stadium on the list of things to consider, I think we can look at the current business case and the reasons why and benefits for its location. Then you can look at the alternate and make a decision on that basis. How about that?
Christine, are you happy with that answer? Yeah. Good, okay, thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So just point 26, the biking and walking strategy, or it's not a strategy, that gap analysis. We've got an action already that we are going to develop a cycling strategy. We had some cycle paths in the Te Papa spatial plan that haven't eventuated. So I just, and I did hear a very good article, I think it was the head of non-car transport with with Auckland City Council on the radio this morning talking about 15 kilometres in their next annual plan of new cycleways in Auckland. So I just think that happy that it's an item, but I think gap analysis definitely isn't quite what I'm looking for. We did want a cycling and walking strategy rather than just a gap analysis. The gap analysis might be part of that, but that is already as an action. But I think it needs to be as a. We just need to beef that up a little bit, please, on 26.
That's fine. We can modify the description.
Thank you.
Just to the Deputy Mayor's point, I guess so long as we're not relitigating this, whatever it's called, the Accessible Streets program, which is, what's it called, something modal or multi something, because that incorporates a revised walking and cycling plan that had a whole lot of community engagement on it, and then the business case had a whole lot more stakeholder engagement, and I'd really hate to think that we're spending a whole lot more money to try and just reinvent exactly the same two wheels.
I definitely don't want to reinvent anything. I just felt that, so I'm happy that the action includes that as well. Councillor Crowd.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we'll certainly take those into as a base starting point.
Thank you.
Given discussions this morning about Cliff Road and what might be happening there, is it appropriate to put cultural and historic precinct on the list, or is it?
I'm just trying to think, would there be papers that would come to you about levels of investments and calls prior to Christmas that you'd be feeling comfortable putting into the LTP? From what I interpreted this morning, unlikely. You might just put some wording disclosures in, but I wouldn't see some. But I mean, there might be an alternative view.
I've got a comment here. So the city centre strategy, which is your 8 precincts, and the priority one-led blueprint, which is the private investment, we're going through a process that is going to do a stock take on both of those documents with a view of then coming together and understand where we've made progress and where we need to make more progress. And out of that, I'd suggest that we would be seeking some sort of investment to advance parts of those programs, so depending where that is.
It's 10A in here, and in the City Futures report that comes to the 30th of June, City Futures, the strategy stocktake on well-planned city includes an update on the city centre strategy, and the points that Marty's just talked about is what we're recommending, that we would do P1 would do a blueprint spatial plan update. We would do a public sector spatial plan update of all the public sector and public realm investments that have been made, and then look at that whole package with this view of number 10A about how do you incentivise development and what do you want happening in the city centre, and then that would flow into here. So that's how that one. So rather than a Cliff Road bit, it's a broader city centre conversation.
I guess my thinking was more around galvanising something that the community can say, well, we'll get our say on this then, and the long-term plan sort of was my thinking. Sorry, and wrapping it up in what you're saying, I think makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, I'd sort of followed on from Councillor Morris's email, flagging a potential amendment to add wording around the cultural and historic precinct, just to be explicit in that, because my view is that a lot of things could take place within a bigger framework, but I think this is so important for our community that it should be explicitly addressed as an issue, and then staff can kind of bring it to us in whatever context is best. But it just means that it doesn't get lost anywhere.
Deputy Mayor?
Thanks. And this, sorry, just a thought when I was looking at the non-issue specific matters, but just from a, I guess, planning perspective, where does the work that might be done looking at the next 10 years on including issues with electricity supply, with utilisation of the thermal activity under our city, where does that sort of thinking in terms of the future of our city and investment in understanding that fit?
Things like electricity supply generally would be picked up in what was smart growth in the future development strategy, so will be under the regional spatial plan with those sort of broader citywide infrastructure capacity issues would be picked up. It's not a long plan as such, yeah.
And so regional spatial plan, which is being worked on by Bay of Plenty Regional Council at the moment and hasn't come back to us. So is that's not a long-term plan issue because it comes back to council anyway? Question?
Yes, so the regional spatial plan work that's underway, and we will give you more of an update at the City Futures meeting on the 30th of June, is around process for developing the regional spatial plan. There isn't, other than doing a stocktake of existing technical work, there is no technical work yet underway. That will happen once the bill is finished, becomes an act, and we're much clearer. But yes, those will come back to council for decisions, and you'll have input. And so probably the best place to cover that is the next City Futures meeting, or the staff will do a presentation on regional spatial plan.
And so is that the time to say, what are we going to do about energy supply in our city?
That would be a good. That would be a good place to have that conversation. And we have addressed it previously in smart growth. There has been actions within the implementation plan that deal with electricity supply.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Is there any other discussion or questions? If there's no other questions, then I think we've got some all right, we've just got one needs to be the closed landfills. Yep. Yep. So just there'll be another one with related to the closed landfills to add there. So,
and if there's will around the table for the I guess we'll call it council funding review.
The what?
Yeah, I don't want to isolate it to just community, but one of the things that came out of our excuse me, out of the publicly excluded conversation was a desire.
Community organisations.
But it's more than that. It's just where we fund who, whether it's economic or education or blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think
just a full review, so we got a full site when we're considering that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd call it though.
I think that is. I don't know.
Oh, it isn't there?
I think it's.
Oh, CJ just said it was missing.
Through the chair, if you're comfortable, it was not in there because you had the conversation at City Delivery, which was after this agenda had been finalised. So if you wanted to, it would just be add community grants and funding, stocktake and review.
Okay.
And we'll give you a complete list of all of the funding, and then you can give us some guidance about what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll go up for yay or nay anyway.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so have I got a mover and seconder for this? Yep, Councillor Morris, Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Any discussion on any of this? Yes.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. May ipsum defendum, in my own defence, I did suggest that many of the issues could just be a paper straight to council, so I was doing my best in terms of productivity to help our team of executives. In terms of the road reseals policy review, I remember clearly that we undertook to, there was a lot of debate around that, whether it be canvassed in this annual plan or whether it be long-term plan or not at all. And my view is that we made a commitment to the community to do that, so we should follow through with that. Whether it's a good use of time or not, my view is that we need to keep our promises to the community, and I think that we promised that, so we should do it. In terms of 2, I don't support the original proposal, which I didn't get a vote on between 2021 and 2024. But that being said, I think that there are a number of things that could happen in our city over this 10-year plan, and we need to look at it. And I support the other amendments there. Thank you, team.
Right, Councillor Carrack. Sorry.
Yes, I'd like to move an amendment to number 1, Steve's Road Reseals Policy Review, to add the words and confirm and, change confirm to consider or consideration of a targeted rate option levied to properties currently enjoying asphalt. Yeah, I use the word enjoying, and doesn't it? If you put a less currently asphalted or whatever. Joy is a bit emotional, yeah.
I think he was
to currently enjoying. The properties that are currently whose roads are currently asphalted.
Yeah.
So enjoy, yeah. So that's been a bit specific around that commitment that Councillor Morris referred to that we had made to those communities.
Okay, so I'll just ask Councillor Morris, Councillor Taylor, are you happy to have that added?
I enjoy asphalt.
Councillor? Yeah, okay. So that's we'll just add that into a substantive. Councillor Taylor, your turn to...
Sorry, I have not much to say, but I do agree with Councillor Morris. My recollection was that we definitely told the community that long-term plan was the place, and we should be keeping our commitment. So apologies to staff for the extra workload, but I think it's necessary.
Right, any other discussion here? Yeah, Councillor Schuler.
Just briefly, potentially supporting what Councillor Morris referred to, the difference between workshop and papers on this list. And so hopefully workshops, are being used to add value. Otherwise, they'll be slowing down decision making. So hopefully through potentially our some of our pre-agenda meetings, if there's another vehicle that we can have some flexibility around what these ultimately are to progress us to good decision making. But today's not the forum to have that long discussion, but otherwise support everything.
Yeah, I think I agree with that comment. I think we probably just need to look at a workshop as if you're trying to make options. If it's a yes or no, we could go straight to a paper. If it's even an option that you might not sure whether council even want to look at it, then it could go to a workshop and get that direction, whether it should be a paper. So, Councillor Baker.
Yeah, just quickly, and again, an acknowledgement to staff for your guys' efforts for this paper and the next one. This has been my first kind of proper go at a long-term plan process, and there's been times throughout the last several months where I've struggled to see a line of sight and how parts of this whole beast are connected. But seeing the reports for today, you guys have done a great job at weaving all those discussions together and providing, reflecting our voices accurately and balanced as possible. So Yeah, I am supportive of the recommendations as they are.
Okay, is there any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, everyone's happy to take this as one. No one wants to vote against anything. All right, we'll take it as one. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried, thank you. Now we'll move to a similar topic, which is 11.7, and is around the long-term plan capital program. Welcome back to our finance team.
Yep, 2 minutes. Can you take me off? Just clear it, because I just have to do something.
Blank PowerPoint.
Great. I'll say Susan.
So just a couple of quick framing comments from me on this. This report is a product of a process that we agreed to embark upon around getting an initial baseline and sense of the major projects over the next 10 years, the period of the LTP. It shouldn't be seen to be more than that. It's a starter for 10. It's a stake in the ground so that everybody can, if you like, form a discussion and coalesce around the initial response. And to note that this is from 7 of the 10 elected members. And so, with that said, I'll pass to Catherine.
Thanks. We do actually have a brief PowerPoint, but that will mainly be to cover Susan's more complicated parts of the presentation. So the purpose of it and what's laid out in the report is just we're seeking some guidance that, as Craig said, is just helping us to frame the LTP capital program as a starter, because what's sitting around is the projects that have been developed over the last few years and many more projects that were in the LTP. And that LTP, as you know, was based upon a very high level of rates increase, and it was a very large program. And so what we're seeking and what the report takes you through is firstly some very indicative guidance around the kind of rates limits through the 10 years that you're comfortable with. So it's not landing the rates, it's just what kind of broad direction would you give us there, and the guiding principles, anything that's coming through in guiding principles, and then on to the more detailed part that Susan will go through is that is there some way we can take some of the big items and some of the other stuff and frame up some high-level envelopes to enable everybody to develop the plan. So if you can just please move down 2 slides. So, so just to reiterate, the rates increase guidance, it's just gives us a notional revenue indicator to support the capital program envelope. So if you're comfortable with a relatively large rates rise every year, then we could have a larger capital program because you would have the debt to revenue capacity. If you're wanting to move down towards that sort of 6 to 7% envelope, or if the rates cap comes in, then you may want to look at a lower envelope. That does directly impact the level of capital that you can sustain each year, so it affects what can go into the pot in each year. And as we've said before, the major projects that are carrying some potential additional subsidy, it gives you a chance to deliver more capital than if you didn't focus on those or didn't prioritise those ones. So happy to take any questions around that. The LTP is where you'll, from the bottom up, say what are we trying to deliver, what does it cost, what do the rates come to. But this is going the other way, trying to say what's a realistic framing for the capital program. So are there any questions on that before I pass to Susan? Oh, actually, I had one more slide and I'll just quickly go through that one. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I did ask a question and someone's answered it, which is cool. In the report, we talk about prioritising closing the infrastructure deficit. How do you reconcile that statement with, on the previous slide, talking that 4 to 6%? Like, do you ever close it?
You can reduce it. Yeah, it might not close completely, but that particular principle came from the growth workshops and recognition that if we're looking at intensification and starting in the Te Papa Peninsula, that there is a infrastructure deficit in relation to public realm in particular. So there are placeholder budgets sitting in the kind of material projects at this stage. They're not defined yet, and Susan can take you through what's currently sitting as placeholders in that space, just to get your feedback on that. Okay, so just this final slide. There's a couple of them, thank you. So this is just basically saying, based on this illustrative scenario, which is looking to bring rates down within that 6%, 4% range, you could potentially look at capital program of around 2.4 billion, which is a reasonably significant capital program, and in the early years you could bring through about 800 million. It would put some stress on the organisation in terms of meeting those rates limits. So there has been discussion about, can we get more cost efficiency to offset the additional costs that come with capital, and so that would put quite a lot of pressure on the organisation to keep trying to find those savings. But it is a reasonable base on which to model a capital program. So just, unless there's more comments, I'll pass over to Susan.
Yeah, my only question is, could we have a second, so like 7% across the whole 10 years, just as a comparison?
Yes, we can, and I think Susan started to put something together on that.
Cool. Okay.
If we just move on to the next slide, would be great, thanks. So at the 4th of June workshop, we talked through a few of the key principles to help guide how we shape this long-term plan capital program. Firstly, value for money, making sure we've got the right scope, we're delivering projects efficiently, and we're making the most of any external funding opportunities. We have a workshop in July, next week in fact, that will go deeper into that scope and cost estimation. Secondly, looking after what we've already got. So the program you're seeing today includes a provision for renewals, and we'll keep refining that as asset management plans are updated through the process. We've also got a session in August to walk through how those renewals budgets are being built up. And third, supporting growth, so making sure infrastructure is aligned with where growth is happening, particularly around intensification and our greenfield areas, as discussed at the Growth Priorities Workshop in May. And on to the next slide, please. Thanks. So we are very much at the starting point for this LTP. We've taken our current budgets and funding assumptions from our corporate planning model and updated them for major projects based on the latest high-level information. That was workshopped on the 4th of June, and the feedback since then has been pulled together to shape the recommendations in front of you today, along with an illustrative base scenario for the program. So what we're looking for today from you is direction on which of the major projects to carry into this first draft long-term plan, and that will help us set some realistic timing and high-level budget envelopes early so that we can build scenarios and test trade-offs in a more structured way. In particular, we are keen to get your steer on the sequencing of the major spend across the LTP, so be it early, mid or later years, where it makes sense to deliver projects early to take advantage of external funding, opportunities to push out or defer lower priority work, and which projects you would like us to come back with further scope options and implications. Next slide, please. So what we summarised here was a consolidation of the feedback from that workshop, particularly the timing adjustment. Now, we haven't updated any of the scope changes at this stage. And also just noting that outside of the major projects and renewals that you can see in separate line items there's roughly $10 to $15 million per annum available for all other transport and spaces and places initiatives. And next slide, please. So just what it means in terms of next steps. So we have a workshop next week on prioritisation and costing. And we will then start building and testing the draft LTP model in August as we get the organisation to feed into our corporate planning model. And that includes both the capital and operational budgets. And then we will continue refining the long-term plan through workshops, prioritisation, and present to you draft budgets in December. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I just had a question. Firstly, there's a 50 million in the first 2 years of connecting Mount Maunganui, but we then say that's not being delivered until the mid-years. I guess that raises some alarm bells when if we're going to start connecting Mount Maunganui as well as Cameron Road Stage 2 and 15th Turret all at the same time, we're going to have some issues. But and then secondly, around the arena extension, we've already, I guess, had a resolution around getting all those projects within that 2030, and now it's shifting out. So maybe being able to switch those two projects, is that?
Connecting Mount Maunganui, so that has been classified as sitting in the mid-years because the bulk of that spend is sitting in the mid-years, albeit that there is some initial works that is still phased in the earlier years. And the current assumption in there is that it is 50% subsidised externally, bearing in mind that has not yet been confirmed. So, and I think this one did come up in the last, in the workshop session that we had in terms of the viability of being able to deliver both of those projects. Oh no, sorry, it wasn't. It was Cameron Road Stage 2, wasn't it?
Well, maybe it's a question to Mike. Can we deliver 50 million of connecting Mount Maunganui while delivering those other two projects?
Through Mr. Chair, I'm not going to answer the question directly. But it'd be challenging to put a lot of work on critical parts of the network all at once. But again, it really does turn out to be how we schedule things. So things can be within a year of each other and whatnot, and not necessarily impact greatly. But at the same time, I would be worried about how we travel and move around the city if we were to liven everything up at once.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Just on that connecting Mount Maunganui project, I guess what it looks to me like is that there's a bit of a disconnect between the finance team's numbers and sort of project plan and what the transport team's project plan is and what our one is. And I say our one because it's in the regional deal quite explicitly that that would be sort of self-funded with a top-up. So to me, we should be building into the sort of what we say we're trying to do in the regional deal, given that we're signed off on the regional deal. That should be the way that funding and financing model is looked at. So yes, we might sell assets for it, but even so, there won't be a 51% NZTA share. So if we do go ahead, there will be a government share that is likely to be smaller than that. We don't know exactly what that will be, but it would be good to, I would say, take a precautionary approach would be my view on the funding and financing model there, because otherwise we could hit a bit of a wall on our number one project.
Well, it is expected that it's the same subsidy.
Except it wasn't when I asked the question before in the meeting that we signed off on the regional deal. It was by no means that the numbers were the other way around. 1.5, not 5.1.
No, well, yeah.
So do we know that the government are looking, if we put in 49% of like of our share. So in other words, will the total for the whole project, will the government still put in 76% of that project cost?
No, 50.
Of 50% of the total cost?
Yeah.
Okay. Then the second question is the costs we normally put in budgets. My understanding is with a higher contingency, because that one seems to be, and Jane can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I've seen all those budgets and gone into them, they're not what we kind of signed off on one of our city future meetings as kind of a report that we received. So we have the typical sort of P50 costs go to P95 in the business case, and this is a lower cost than either of those numbers there. So unless that's been rescoped in the meantime, in which case, before we sign off on here, I'd like to know what the scope is.
I don't think we're not signing off on the numbers today. We're just signing off on where the
sequencing. Like that's what I mean. Before we sign off on the prioritisation and sequencing, I'd like to of the draft, of the initial cut of this, because that's one of the key projects to this whole puzzle.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we're trying to give direction today. We're not signing off on a program. My view is we still go through a prioritisation program like this, is really putting some placeholders in from feedback as to where things have gone. My personal steer would be that we put the arena back into the early years and shift connecting Mount Maunui out to the mid-years, just from a pure actually deliverability perspective, but that's I'm happy to take any other views around the room. That's only my personal view. Is there any other?
This may, actually no, I can save that for discussion amongst councillors.
Yeah.
It's not a clarity question of you guys.
Yeah, so I guess we're just trying to get, and this, we've got to look at this as what it is. We're not signing off on a long-term plan today. We're saying here's our first draft. When they're going to bring us a first draft, it's going to have these projects in these years. So yeah, where's people's comfort level? We got it right. I think my personal view is, looking through this, we've fairly well got it right. Yeah, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. No, this was a very challenging exercise, getting these projects lined up, because a lot of them are on my like to have started now list. But we've got to be practical, and I sort of based it on what order we think we can get them achieved in and how much subsidy per one. Definitely on board with the Mayor moving the marina extension forward, but we can't do everything at once. So how do we dump another one back? Again, it comes back to the sequencing of 15th and Cameron. That may sort itself out as we get a more detailed business case together, and the sequencing may allow us to bring the arena forward. I'd like to be slightly flexible around what's easy to move up and down the list when something moves, based on we can't start now for different reasons. But I don't want to change the envelope per block of years. If we can stay inside an envelope, I'm happy to move, but don't change the envelope, because that makes things very challenging all round. But yeah.
Into D8. So just making a recommendation.
Yep. Okay. G2,
That was just to align to our previous. So we'll just get that put up in a second. Yep.
I won't be talking to myself. Along the lines of what I asked previously to Christina Marty, in terms of the seeing the feedback from everyone about pushing out spaces and places, intensification in the city centre area, I think it was Otamoto area and the Mount. Again, in the strategic thinking to date, is that there and was that there earlier as the way to put in the amenity and the facilities in and around the city centre to make it a more attractive place to live? First question.
In terms of the timing of when these bulk funds were programmed in the previous LTP and any changes that have come through subsequently, there was probably about $21 million more across the first several years of this plan than what we have allowed for in this illustrative scenario. So we've allowed $1 million per annum for spaces and places intensification work.
That is what I thought the answer would be. And so again, it comes in this now is probably, if I'm allowed, because I don't know if we'll get discussion on this. And I know I always get annoyed when other councillors do this, but comment to councillors that, again, we need to be really clear on what our strategic vision and decision, and we've already talked that intensification as opposed to greenfields is important. We've said that really clearly. So in my mind, if I asked you a question, would intensification being spent a bit earlier in the LTP be more consistent with a strategy of getting the city centre ready for more people to live in it?
Just through the chair, just noting that they are placeholder budgets, so there's not a visualisation of what it actually is.
Councillor Crowther.
I'm just trying to follow the Mayor's question and the answer, getting a clear answer. So Connecting Mount is mostly in the mid, and Bay Park Arena is early in the on page 445 of the agenda. I've got the main document because my Stella's playing up. So can you confirm, like, are we saying that Connecting Mount is now, as the Mayor said, early in the first 3 years, and is the Bay Park Arena expansion, it looked to me on the one page that it was mid-year now, but then I go to the other one of the rankings and we wanted it early, and I'm just trying to get my head around how that all would work.
So the arena expansion was initially sitting in the early years to flow on from the $2 million worth of investment that TECT is supporting in the 27 financial year. Through the feedback that we received from everyone, it was swinging towards supporting rephasing that particular project to the mid-years of the LTP. So in the illustrative scenario, that project has been deferred to the mid-years.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get my head. So the 15 million that was in the previous council meeting where we tentatively approved the $30 million project, and we get 15 from TECT, and now we're getting 13 from TECT. Is that anything to do with the shuffling of timing, or is that just that they've changed how much they're willing to contribute?
No, because they're giving two this before the long-term plan.
Oh, they'd give two for the arena expansion.
Yeah. And
irrespective of when we do it. I thought that was conditional on us doing it in the first 3 years.
I would suspect that there is some risk in deferring it, and that they may not wish to support the design in the next financial year if we don't go ahead with it more immediately.
Now I've got that clear. Thank you.
All right, so I guess just on that discussion, that was a change. I just put that back in because I think, I think we've got some risks around that Connecting Mount Maunganui, which has got 8, 13, 28 in those first 3 years of deliverability. So that's, I'm happy to move that. Have we got a seconder for the recommendations? Yeah, Councillor Roseboom. I don't think there's any discussion. I'd just like to say that I'd still like these to go. I know there's an option there around prioritisation. I think this is a start, but I'd still like to see them come out of the prioritisation framework to say whether they are, this is the view really of the elected members, and I think it should still go through that process.
Sorry, just before we carry on, do you want to add your 7%?
Oh, sorry, yes. Yeah, that was, I asked the question, but I didn't actually change the resolution. So I'm happy, maybe B, with a second option of 7% per year.
At the end.
Yeah.
A second.
Yeah. And Councillor Roseboom.
That could be, yeah, definitely very supportive of the 7. Definitely supportive of putting the projects through the prioritisation. I think once we've done the Cameron Road Stage 2, agreed on what scope we're going to do it, what the project is, then we get a bit of an idea what that's framed up like, and the 15th Ave and the Turret Road and what the timing of that and the implementation of that looks like, we'll get a better idea of where we fit the rest of the projects in. And my main aim is we have an envelope for the first 3 years, that we don't change the size of the envelope, but we may change the projects that are in that envelope, and the same for the mid. Because in the first 3 years, we've got so much other stuff happening with us at Council. We've got the whole simplifying local government thing happening, the entire local water done well transition into and settling in on that. The right sizing of the organisation. There's a lot happening, and these envelopes may move based on the sequencing of them. So we need to be quite flexible with this, but definitely supportive of where we are indicating. And I like the 7, because with what's been discussed today, I don't think we'll get it inside a 6%.
Councillor Schuller.
I know you said you didn't want any discussion, but I'll keep it short. I'm glad we got the 7% option in there. I suppose there's a very negative lens at the moment on all our projections based on constant and real and true and fully acknowledged cost of living crisis. Is that going to last for the 10 years or the next 10 years of the cycle? So I think taking a more circumspect angle and stepping back a bit and saying what would we expect over 10 years is also a reasonable approach. That's not talking anything about affordability, because that is very much will be an issue, I'm sure, no matter what percentages we set. But I think if we don't have the opportunity to see what it could be and be able to make decisions from that, and we discount everything straight away, I think that would be very short-sighted of this council. So happy to see the options there and support what Councillor Roseboom said.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. A bit like Gustavo Fring, I like to just be quiet and try and get a few things done, but I'm going to have to break bad with my colleagues on this one, on 11.7. I think too, and I appreciate the work and discernment that's gone into 6 + 4 and even 7. But I think to accept those numbers now, I think we are agreeing to defeat before the battle. We're agreeing for defeat in advance. So I think we need to consider not just what we can build in our city for our people, but what our people can bear as well. And so my personal view, and I would request that B and D7 be taken separately, because I wish to vote against those. My personal view would be that we should aim for 5.3% for the first years, and then 4% thereafter, because that gives us 0.5% of headroom once we have considered depreciation and average interest costs. I would urge colleagues to support me here, as I said in the beginning, to put that stake in the ground, I think, is to lose the battle in advance. And I think we can do better. I look around the table, I look at my colleagues, and I go, gee, you're an impressive lot. And that's just the exec. And then when I look around the councillor and the mayor table, I go, gee, you're also a really impressive lot. So I think we need to be ambitious for our city, be ambitious for our residents, and be aware that it's not just about what we can build, it's about what our people can bear. Thanks.
Councillor Curran.
Yes, firstly, just to confirm your amendment at the end where you put the, with the second option of 7% per year, that's for years 1 and 2, the 7 and dropping back to the 4, is that correct?
Yeah, 7 each year for 10 years.
Oh, 7 each year for 10 years?
Yeah.
Well, that 7% means rates double in 10 years. So I'd have to go with Steve on that one, because even the proposed B, as it currently it was a 54% increase over the 10 years. And so, I'm with Steve. I think given the environment and the affordability issues that was expressed very clearly in the survey that we recently undertook, we need to do better. So I'm with you, Councillor Morris, and I'd certainly, look forward to opposing B when it comes up.
Councillor Crowther.
I'm just going to start with a question to the mover and seconder, which is, would they be open to including the waste facilities redevelopment in both the early and mid years as per the actual plan that is put forward, as opposed to the resolution itself, which only has them in the mid-year, or it in the mid-year? And the reason for that, just to be clear, is because it was the third highest ranked project by us in our spreadsheet analysis that the staff kindly did for us. So we had, for the public who may not have looked, Moa restoration was number 1, Turret 15th was number 2, and waste facilities redevelopment was number 3. And I think it'd be a real shame to signal this early that we are not wanting to put a significant amount into that first time frame, seeing the staff have given us an opportunity to do that in the paper, but not in the summary. So before I continue, are the mover and seconder open to doing that? It doesn't have to remove it from the middle, just add it in the first period as well. That will let staff have flexibility to sort of weight it according to our wishes once we see the business case next week, are you saying, Councillor Rosenbaum?
We've got a workshop next week about it.
Yeah.
Next Wednesday afternoon, I believe.
So if I pause for it, that's a chance for an answer.
That one, my personal view is, that's come from the priority of the elected members, so I don't see a reason to change it. The only reason I suggested changing the Bay Park Arena was that was an agreement, a loose agreement we've already made with a funder. We talk about one of the priorities is that we make the most of the subsidies that we get from others, whereas that one, it is close, it's 331, but that does push it to the mid-years.
No, just to be clear, Mr. Chair, I'm not wanting to change it. I'm wanting to capture what's on the list, which is presumably led to the resolutions. So, for instance, Turret 15th is scheduled early on the list, is scheduled early in the resolution. Waste facilities redevelopment is scheduled early and mid on the list, but it's only scheduled mid in the resolutions. So I'm just trying to capture what's in the...
mid means that the majority of the spending is in the mid-years on the resolution.
Yeah, but I think that's the issue, that we haven't got to that point on that project. But I'm happy to vote against. If you keep it separate, I can just vote against it if you don't want to do that. Well, if I carry on, I guess to me that's one of the things that's become very clear from feedback I've had from the public over the years that's come through from our elected member group, which was pleasantly surprising to me, that I think we as a group do understand the importance of that project and the whole waste infrastructure area, and it is something which is absolutely core, you know, the old rubbish and roads type thing, rates rubbish roads or whatever, for councils. I think it, you know, it's there for a reason, that it's something which could transform the environmental outcomes, could transform some of the unnecessary travel across our city, could lift our services to a completely, you know, game-changing level. And so to me it would be highly disappointing if we did a long-term plan and we condemn that project to the middle.
We're not condemning it.
If we,
for your guide, we've got
No, I
2.5
understand.
million, 6.5 million.
yeah, but I personally would like to speed that up. I've understood from the team back in the day that it could be. So I would be reluctant to sort of sign off on this now because of that. But other than that, I suppose the other big thing for me is the idea around the three major transport projects. I think we really need to have a close look at those before we schedule anything. So I'm sure we will do that, but I think at this stage I'll be reluctant to commit to all three of those as priority projects in our long-term plan, and then to see the transport intensification projects drop into the late period, knowing how, if we do get a rates cap and if we do end up in a different era of local government, then those will fritter away pretty quickly, those opportunities later in the decade. So I think some of those projects are really important for our city, and I'm not convinced yet that Cameron Road Stage 2, I'm not talking about the waters, but I'm talking about the transport component, is so important. And I do think connecting Mount Wanganui could be critically important if we get a lot of growth out east. So to me that needs a lot of careful consideration, and I know we're not signing off on a plan, I understand that, but we are sending signals and direction, and staff will go away and do what they do as a result of it. And I guess for myself, whatever the outcome of this is, I will be looking at this as a very broad indication as opposed to anything that could be held back against me as a commitment, because I know some of my colleagues, not looking at anyone in particular who's looking away from me, that I've been told that we signed up to things, and I don't think this is signing up to something. So this is to me, this is so broad and it's such poor decision making if we are, that I have to conclude this is just a rough sense of direction, because we need to see more detail to be able to do that. So on that context, I'm happy to vote through most of this, but I don't want it to be said that I'm supporting or not supporting any of these projects in that order. The other thing in terms of the rates increase, I think we're far better to do the sort of wangling of numbers later, or wrangling, or whatever the right word is, wrangling of numbers, that the 4% after growth to me is a good goal to aim at and to develop a long-term plan around. And we then actually can get to the point where we look at the consultation document, and as I've suggested previously, that we have maybe three options there, and we do whatever's looking the most realistic way of getting from our communities the information we need at that point. So I would not be able to support B as it stands, but would suggest that the best way to deal with it would be to look at that fine-tuning later, but we actually have a clear goal, and we set the instruction to our staff to go and see if they can give us a 4% rates increase, with the proviso what Councillor Morris said, with the 5.3 in the initial year.
Councillor Schooler.
Thank you, Mayor Mahe. I also feel that the resolution is rather early to be agreeing to things, and I wonder if I'd like to foreshadow an amendment that rather than that the council, prior to that, to say for the purposes of staff being able to do initial modelling for long-term planning, that the council, because I think I can't agree to these without seeing what it really means. So these are, if you read these in 6 months' time and said we agreed to this, then we haven't really. We've just said, and the purpose of the report is to assist staff to model high-level capital budget envelopes. So it's I think I would just like to add a little bit of the purpose in before that the council agrees. But we're only agreeing it to enable some initial modelling to happen, aren't we?
Yeah. So, where would we?
I would write it under recommendations, and before that the council, I would put in there for the purposes of, or to enable staff to model initial long-term plans.
It's probably to guide staff. To guide staff.
Suggest that you'll use words like to guide staff in development of the long-term plan, because I think it is a bit more than just modelling. You're already starting to give us some broad direction. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
You happy with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with that, Councillor Roseboom. Yeah. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? All right. Yes, Councillor Baker.
Sorry, I'm being hoha by waiting for you to, after you already asked the question. I'm in the same waka as some of my other fellow elected members and would like to see multiple options, more than two options effectively considered. I kind of didn't explain why 5.3 is a good number, but notwithstanding that, I would also like to see a lower number considered in those earlier years as well. And so I'd like to foreshadow an amendment to B, unless the mover and seconder are happy to approve a third option, that we then consider a third option in line with what Steve had said.
Yeah, like my personal view is this is early, and I kind of agree with Councillor Crowther that actually this frames, we get something on paper, and then if we want to go lower, higher, in the middle, we can, but you'll know kind of what you're going to have to do to get to change the option. Like I think we're getting, as soon as you go past two options, you end up with two. Like you could have 10 options, but it just creates complexities. And what we've heard already is we don't even know what exactly is there. So as we get to see what this looks like, you can then say, actually, no, we're happy to cut stuff out, and we want to get to 2, or we want to get to 5.3. So yeah, that would be my guide at this stage.
At face value, it's not. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with what you've said, but in our tenure in the last almost 2 years, it's happened a couple of times, particularly in waters where, because we didn't consider enough options, we weren't given enough options to make some really considered decisions. And I would rather not cut ourselves off at the knees early when this is something that most of us, if not all of us, have been waiting to get to since we started. And so if we can set a low and a high bar early, then that gives us still what I think you're trying to achieve in that range of considerations. But it's going to be difficult, I think, if we're starting at a low of 6 to then work back to something less considering staff time and involvement. But if we had the early number there, then their time and effort is balanced across the 3 options.
should we also say that B should be request that staff develop a model with a number of options including? Rather than agrees to limit the maximum?
Yeah, yeah.
Just a suggestion, you could do the existing resolution, and then you could have another request that the staff provide broad envelopes for a lower level of rating, say at 2%. So that means that rather than having to do a full scenario, you'll know a 6% scenario looks like this, and this is what we're suggesting could be in that. And if you wanted to get to a 2, here's how much would need to come out of that envelope to get it to that level. So then at least you've got your dollar benchmarks without having to basically do whole duplicate processes. And you know the scale of what needs to come out. I'm just looking at Catherine, whether that's achievable midway point. So we're just giving the envelope, but we're not creating a whole new package of projects to make that envelope up. So we know scale, but not the detail.
So what will happen is we'll provide this information to the various project managers and activity managers, and they'll load a suite of projects. And from past experience, it will probably require a rates rise of 15%. And so we'll really start to push which ones can come out. Again, to get down to that really low level, we could say, okay, this is the maximum you'd be able to have in. But off one scenario, one lot of projects put through the LTP is where we'd be able to build that. And so at the low level, it's probably easier to say, yes, you can build up based on your principles, ideally, so you'll have your renewals and your kind of core material, and then these ones will fall off if you can only get to 2%. And then based on what probably has been the initial bid, if you like, from activity managers and project managers to the exec, we'll be able to give you a summary of what's having to be moved out to stay within that broad envelope, even at 7%, and then at that 6% dropping to 4%. So it won't be 3 different scenarios, because we'd have to have 3 different systems, if that makes sense. Yeah, so if you think of what the attachment that Susan, I think she handed out the attachment that had a red line at one stage, and it showed all the projects that fell below the line. Well, that line would have a lot more projects below it to present a broadly 2% option. And it would have also we would have to find X amount of savings within the business in terms of rates as well. So it will just be a high-level scenario rather than a full model.
I just I feel we're getting to a point where we're going to end up getting too into detail, and that means that we're actually going to not necessarily get the best outcome. I think there's still a lot of options to go up or down from these, but we need to sort of put a line in the sand. What is our base scenario? And if we want to move 1 or 2 or 3%, we can do that sort of at a later date when we. But we'll then have a pretty good idea of what's in and what has to come out if you're going to get there, to see whether we're prepared to do that. Be my view. Not convinced.
Are we going to start of B?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
So are we going to change the beginning of B just to that the council requests staff to develop a model 2 rather than agrees to limit?
Yeah. So
I'll put requests staff to develop the model with a number of options, including.
Not with a number of options, I think. Request staff to develop a model starting
Yeah.
Yeah,
So develop a model.
Good.
starting with, just take out all that. With maximum rates, so, yeah. Oh.
Request to develop a model starting with maximum rates.
All right. So have we got any other discussion on this? or-
Yeah, point of order, Sec Leader, under standing orders to speak a second time to move an amendment to B.
Okay.
And that amendment would read, because we're starting to develop a model starting with maximum rates increase for years 1, 2 of the LTP to be 5.3% after growth. And then the rest as it is written. But I need a seconder for that.
Councillor Crowther?
And the rationale for that 5.3 number is that it's 0.5% above what our depreciation and finance cost is for the year, for those first 2 years.
Have we got any
Depending.
discussion?
Those.
We got any discussion on that amendment? If there's no
I don't support that, but
yeah.
I was happy with it up till there.
Okay, so we'll put this to the vote. So it's basically changing this resolution B from 6 to 5.3. Oh, sorry, Councillor Correct.
So given it's turned into a model, why do we require the second option of 7% per year? Because a model, you can just type in whichever percentage that you're looking for. So
I think we'll change it to develop an LTP starting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's clearer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay.
So just.
Scenario.
Yeah, I think we need the word scenario in there.
Developing LTP scenarios.
Well, you've got two though, because you've got the second option of 7%. So you
Yeah.
If we start to develop an LTP scenario, you
So
don't have.
develop LTP scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. All right. So, so the amendment is going from 6 to 5.3. Yeah, you're going to talk to the amendment.
Yeah, but can I ask a question too, just for clarity, from Councillor Baker? Seeing we're trying to fit in everything. Councillor Baker had said that he was keen to have the 4% option, and then we had a reason not to, but now it's resolved to LTP scenarios. Couldn't that now, if the mover and seconder are willing, couldn't that now be brought in as a, like with options of 4% and 7% or 7% and 4%? Is there any reason not to do that now that it is LTP scenarios?
Well, it doesn't change it to anything that it wasn't before. It's two options. So anything more, it's going to 3.
Yeah. So, but maybe I couldn't follow that whole earlier discussion, but I thought, to Councillor Baker's point, yeah, what's the extra work involved in doing that, I guess, is the question to start.
Well, it's a whole nother LTP.
So you're saying each one is a whole LTP?
Well, you pretty much, yeah.
Because you need to find projects that are around.
Okay. Then I'll leave that then if Councillor Baker can fight that one and I'll back him if he wants.
All right, I do want to...
yeah, we'll leave it here.
I'll put the amendment to the vote. So this is just changing that 6 to 5.3. Ask all those in favour of 5.3 rather than 6. say aye. So we've got.
Aye.
Aye.
So we've got Baker, Crowther, Morris, Schooler and Correct. What, sorry, is that Rolleston as well?
Oh, no, you don't.
Okay, that's 1, 2, and those against? That's carried. I'll now, so do we still want B separately, councillor Crowther, or? No, okay, I'll now put the, I'll put the whole, I'll put the whole motion now to the council. All those in favour of the full resolution? Aye. Those against? No one against? All right, that is carried. Thank you. Now we go to 11.8, appointment of directors to council organisations policy, amending reappointment of board members provisions. I think you will see you've got a email from Caroline that just had the track changes, because the one we got didn't have the track changes, so you couldn't see what had changed. Just give everyone a moment to see that, which will make life easier when we can see the track changes. Right, we've got Caro here. Have we got any questions? My only question is, we sort of discussed around having a resolution, I guess, at the panel around appointments or around agreement around the panel. Can we do that without that being in the policy?
It's your policy at the end of the day, so you can make changes to it, and kind of, go with the changes that you want.
But that's, my understanding is that's what happened this year. So I guess the question is, does it need to be in the policy, or is that just something that we can?
I can make the changes in the policy. So specifically, I can. Where it says on page, on page 4 of the attachment with the track changes, so section 4.4.3, in the last bullet point, it could be something along the lines of panel recommendations do not have to be unanimous, or something along. Maybe formalised with a recommendation from the majority. Majority of the panel, yeah.
I think that would be good, in the fact that was something we needed to tidy up after last year, and I understand it worked well this year. So,
and through you, Your Worship, I do apologise for the attachment to my report. For some reason in Info Council, when you make track changes in Word, it doesn't get picked up. So apologies for that.
Thank you. All right, have we got? Yes, certainly.
Does this apply to the Waters Organisation board appointment as well? And if it's correct.
So at the moment it does, unless you specifically, and sort of as a crossover, because you made these decisions, you gave us direction before the working group had made its calls on the water organisation, so you might want to put some alternative provisions in for the water organisation.
Yeah, we may have to put some in because the Waters Organisation is now going to be a public meeting, so it needs to be in here that the Waters Organisation Board's meetings will be publicly available and publicly notified with the agendas and all attachments as well. So need to be sure that there's a distinction between the Waters Board and the other CCO boards, so they don't all think they're going to be public.
You probably don't need to put that actually in the policy because that's a statutory requirement for the water organisation, so you wouldn't need to actually duplicate that in the policy. It would just become practice. Yeah.
So as long as it's clear to everybody, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Mahe. So I just, further to the change that you're going to make on the Mayor's suggestion, Caro, I just think it's really important that we say that at the end of the appointment panel meeting, a resolution is drafted based on the majority. So I think I just like that process recorded as well as that, please.
Yes, I'll make those changes.
Exactly as you did for us, like what we actually did this year, but it's like actually at the meeting have that piece of paper that we sign off. And my other question is just, why is Tauranga Art Gallery Trust separate? And 442, and everyone else is 441?
Oh, because, oh no, sorry, that's not right.
The reason,
yeah, and one independent.
Yeah. So through His Worship, I believe that the reason why it's separate is because in 4.4.2, the second bullet point says the existing chair or deputy chair of the CCO, whereas the other appointment panels would be kind of the existing chair of the CCO or their nominee.
Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, that answer. So why is that different? Why can we have the deputy chair on the art gallery but not on anyone else, or the other way around?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that, Deputy Mayor. We can make, we can just make it consistent right across all the panels.
I would have thought so.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yep, Councillor Taylor.
Not quite sure what the decision here, but if we look at 4.4.1, the existing chair of the CCO or their nominee, and you just mentioned that, what if they're the person getting recruited? Potentially that's a bit of a grey area, and I'd almost say that we might be better not to have any of the existing directors on there. But
through His Worship, I think that the answer to that, I think Christine has provided that response in Stella, but just to make it transparent to everybody, you could make it if the chair is applying for the position, then it is the deputy chair or their nominee of that CCO as part of the appointment panel.
potentially the chair would have appointed the deputy chair, so.
That's a good point, Councillor Rod. But I think that at the end of the day, you are dealing with professional board members, so they would make sure that anybody that council appoints to their board, that they are based on merit and they've got the right experience and skill to make a real contribution at the board table for the people of Tauranga.
Okay, have we got any other questions? I think we've got a couple of small changes. I think we can just,
Sorry, Mayor Mahe.
oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
I'm just getting into the detail, but quite often a deputy chair anticipates they'll become a chair at some stage. So now I'm not sure the solution to what Rod raised, but you quite often appoint the deputy chair on the basis that succession planning allows them to become the chair. So we need to think about whether the deputy chair is the right person to be appointing the chair. If the deputy chair's only got one more term, one more year, and there's a new chair, then just is a little bit odd. But so I don't know the solution. I'm just asking whether we need to still say, or that the elected members suggest which member of the board sits on that committee.
Well, it might be that I'm just thinking of those two different resolutions. Is that the definitive difference, that we appoint the chair of the CCOs but we don't of the art gallery? Is that perhaps the reason that we had those?
Yes, so in their trust deed, the Tauranga Art Gallery Trust trustee, the trustees appoint their own chair. So that's different to the other CCOs.
Yeah, so that might be the differentiation, although that doesn't make sense, does it? Because okay.
I think it's probably sensible, Caro, to put that in the in 4.4.2, just to say, note that the trust deed dictates that the chair is appointed by the board, because then next time we'll know not to try to put them together.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, okay.
Or do we say rather than the existing chair, do we put one of the members of the board as decided by the elected members, and then it's just open? It can be normally the chair. I don't know. I just think we haven't quite got it.
I think we just want to make sure that when the chair is up for appointment, that it's not the chair. So I think we should leave that with Caro to try to figure out the words.
Good.
But
Thank you.
I think generally we're supportive of this. We probably just need to change the amendment slightly to give Caro the delegation. Yeah.
Minor amendments to reflect elected member direction on appointment panel members. So delegate to the GM strategy, partnerships and growth, to make minor amendments to reflect the elected member direction in respect of the appointment panel.
So delegate.
Delete. Delegate, yeah.
And then elected member, reflect elected members.
Members to respect of the CCO member of the appointment panel, because it's the only element that you're asking for me to look at. So of the CCO member
Oh, there's also the appointment. I like the resolution.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
CCO, member of the appointment panel and, of the appointment panel and the appointment panel report, which is what Jen's talking about, this decision and report.
Yeah. Report. Yeah, perfect. All right, councillor Taylor will move that. We've got a seconder. Yes, councillor Roseboom. Any discussion? Okay. Sorry, councillor Taylor, councillor Roseboom.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. I just move a resolution to go past 6 hours. Have I got a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Roseboom, councillor Crowther. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. We will now just take a break, and we'll come back at 3:50, ready to go. What, did you not get any lunch?
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
9, International Air Travel Sister City Delegation. And this is authorising travel. Does anyone have any questions? If there's no questions, then we have some recommendations. Anyone happy to move and second recommendations? Councillor Morris, got a seconder. Councillor Rolleston, would you like to talk?
Yeah, briefly, this is the 40th anniversary of a relationship that has served Tauranga and, I might add, the wider Western Bay of Plenty sub-region well. Yantai is a port that has some $125 billion worth of exports compared to Tauranga down at the $1.8 billion level. And it's important that we make the most of that opportunity, and through the report back I just ask that for resident comfort that we get a report on the trade, business and investment leads generated from the visit. But yeah, no, I do support it. It's important for our regional economy.
Can we just have an action around the report back? It's a good suggestion. Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Rolleston.
Yeah, endorse what Councillor Morris says. Look, these are difficult times and difficult, always making difficult spending decisions. We need to continue to build these relationships, and we need to keep the wheels turning. It's easy to say in these challenging environments that we should basically restrict spending, but as someone that's been experienced in international travel in previous times and in previous roles, I see the significance of being there in person. So yeah, I mean, yes, we need to be cognizant of cost. I support the view that we should be getting a report back. I would expect there will be some reciprocation at certain point in time, but yeah, I endorse the recommendation.
Right, we got any other discussion? Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of the trip. I think, as Councillor Morris said, it's an important relationship, and I am happy to support Tauranga City Council being represented there. My personal position is that I sort of struggle sending 3 elected members there. Obviously the mayor, I think we need the mayor to go, but I'd struggle with 3, and really the reason why, even though it's not a lot of money, and in the scheme of a council budget it's a tiny bit of money, but that money does equate to what we could have spent to keep both Citizens Advice Bureau and Food Bank with their funding that they'd had. And I just have to look at this and sort of go, could we achieve the same outcomes, you know, with 1 or 2 fewer people? And that's why I sort of struggle to support the one part of it. Yeah, in general, very supportive of having us go over there and be represented.
Right, any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, happy to put it to the council. Of the recommendations, all those in favour, Councillor, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Taylor and myself will abstain from the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Crowther against. That is carried. Thank you.
And can it be noted in the minutes that I was supportive of the trip itself, just not the funding allocation amount.
Right, now we go to 11.10, which is simplifying local government Head Start process. I think there was just one recommendation on this. that we change the word just get the so just just change delegates to directs. Yep. Just like to also note in 20.25 we talked about a lot of different councils there, but we have spoken to Thames Coromandel District Council, so that was also an option. I just wanted to note in addition to that report to be upfront as to who we have had discussions with. Is there any questions on this one? There's no oh, yeah, Councillor Morris.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe just for the benefit of the public, how will the survey, which is currently in progress, and the other consultation avenues or feedback avenues that we're taking, such as the Merrill breakfast the other day, how will this work be informed by that community feedback?
So the survey in particular will get a report very similar to that you received as part of the annual report survey this year. That survey closes on the 1st of July, and so that'll be fed into your thinking in time for your final decision making, which will be for the 21st of July. And just while we're talking about engagement, I guess a shameless little plug to anybody who may be watching that we've got the Mayor doing a live Q&A online on Facebook tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And certainly I think there's going to be a bestseller, so for anybody who wishes to tune in on that online.
Discussing local government, who wouldn't want to miss that? Yeah, Councillor Schuller.
Get Rob up to the front table. Thank you. Question, do we just have a number on how many respondents we've had to the survey as yet?
Just during our little evacuation, had a conversation with the officer who's running that process, and we're sitting around about 400 in total at the moment, but expect that to rise. The survey company is currently running through doing the direct responses, so aiming for around about 1,000 of those as well, minimum.
And 1,000 is a number we'd be happy with, or should we try and supercharge it to get more?
Try and supercharge it. We are out promoting through on the online process, promoting that survey as we speak. But yeah, again, any assistance that elected members can give in terms of promoting on your own socials would certainly be encouraged.
Right, is there any other questions? There's no other questions. Then happy to move this. Have I got a seconder? Yep, Councillor Schuller will second that. Look, this is a pretty important subject to the Bay of Plenty and to Tauranga. The government have given us a direction that change is coming to local government, and we have an opportunity to either lead that change or the change will be done to us through a backstop. So what this is saying is giving the CEO, directing the CEO to work with other councils in the Bay of Plenty region and adjacent districts to prepare a Head Start outline proposal for consideration by the council. So this is our opportunity to lead the change rather than wait around and potentially have this done to us. The advantage of a Head Start proposal is there is bespoke legislation. If you're approved and you come up with a plan, that bespoke legislation means that you have a lot more options open to you. Time frames for this is a high-level proposal in August. If the government approves that, then you develop a detailed plan by March next year. Again, if the government approves that, it will mean that that we go to bespoke legislation mid-next year, and in 2028 at the elections in October, you'll be voting for a new council that will represent your district. The government have very much talked unitaries. The regional council functions need to be done by the unitary council as well as the district and city councils. So it's merging into two bigger entities. You have to find friends to work with in this process, and so it's very important to our public. This is a significant change. This is the biggest change in local government since 1989. So we do want your input, we do want your feedback. Obviously with the timeframes, it's hard to have a meaningful consultation before the proposal goes in, but certainly there's an opportunity to feed in with some of the principles, some of the challenges, some of the issues that you may have, so we can take those into account as we start to design the system. Throughout that planning phase, if we get through the initial hurdle of being accepted into the Head Start, there will be more time to have some of those conversations, and there's some big conversations to have around representation and how we protect the local voice with bigger councils. What are the advantages of bigger councils potentially, the efficiency and the effectiveness, just to always bring up, there's 3 councils with head offices as ratepayers of Tauranga City. So that is how many councils we have at the moment. There are 7 across the Bay of Plenty region. So I think there is ways to do this better, and I'm excited about the opportunity here because we can create something which hopefully works better for our people, is more efficient, and we keep talking about the cost of living, that rates are unaffordable. We have to do things differently if we're going to deliver significantly better results and better outcomes for our people, and this is an opportunity that we can take out some of that duplication, get some more efficiency, and this is about creating a new system. It's not about us joining with anyone else or taking over anyone else. It's about creating a new system that works for the region that you decide to do that in. So that's very much a bit of a download on where we're at. But at this stage, really want to hear from all the people in our community. This is going to affect you in some way or another, so we'd like to get your views, especially around the principles you want us to follow, the issues and any concerns that you have, and then those can be taken into account and help guide us as we look to design a system that hopefully is a better outcome for everyone that lives not only in Tauranga but in the wider Bay of Plenty region. Councillor Schuler? Okay, any other discussion here? Councillor Morris?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. No, I support us working on a Head Start pathway once we've got feedback from our community and or incorporating feedback from our community. That's critical. I note the 1989 amalgamations was a result of a Royal Commission which had delegated power to make recommendations, and there was no referenda, no public feedback on the proposals. They were able to make that decision at the Royal Commission level, which was a really interesting way of making decisions about local democracy. This is perhaps one step better than that. My hope is that the Head Start doesn't turn into a false start for the government. But I would also say, in support of the Mayor's comments around our neighbours, I've heard it said that this is not inviting other councils or other districts into Tauranga's house. It's about saying we need to design a new house for the sub-region or the region or wherever together. It's a new house, not our house.
Good words there, Councillor Morris. Any other discussion? Councillor Roseboom.
Thank you, Mayor, and I might just to support Councillor Morris in the way that this is a new local government structure. And the bit that concerns me from the discussions up to this point, everyone's still sitting within their current local authority boundaries. The Minister's made it quite clear that we can actually redraw these lines or take the lines away completely. Limiting our conversations to within our Bay of Plenty boundary is fine, but we need to consider that we may have neighbours that may wish to have a conversation around what's best for them. Particularly for myself, it's going to the west, north, up to Waihi. If we don't allow the people of Waihi to have a discussion around joining their neighbours, how can they say that we've engaged with them appropriately? Sticking within our boundaries may be restrictive for some communities. In our east of Potiki, for example, are they having discussions with the Potiki? So we need to be very open-minded around how we phrase our discussions around giving the people the opportunity to choose their own future as opposed to us imposing it upon them. So for all those who are listening, please engage with our survey, please fill it in, please give your feedback. So we've captured all the options that our community wish us to explore between now and August. Thank you.
It's when good neighbours become
Councillor Baker.
Yeah, supportive of exploring options for sure. I guess what will guide me initially, whilst we always enter these conversations and things with an open mind, is tauranga moana, tauranga tangata, tauranga the environment and tauranga the people, and whatever option is presented to us needs to still be what's best for the people of Tauranga.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Yep, I'm supportive of this too. I think I do have reservations about where this could end up, but that's more to do with the government's approach to it. It does seem a bit of a, dare I say it, an amateurish kind of approach to it compared to some of the work that's happened in the past in New Zealand. And included in that, if the public are interested, to look at the Infrastructure Commission report, to look at the Future for Local Government, all these other pieces of work that have been done over the years. And I guess that comment was a bit harsh to the amateurs out there, but I think that, this is not a good way to go about doing reform, because you want to actually base it on principles. You want to look at the functions of local government, and I agree with Councillor Risbom and Councillor Morris that we just need to look at things afresh. And if we're going to do it, let's do it in a way that ticks all the boxes. And those boxes for me are to have the functions performed at the optimal level of government, whether that's central, regional, local, or I think super local is a word that's been used, and then to look at the financial side of it and to try to come up with a more sustainable model for local government, particularly in growth areas such as ours. And then the third thing is to address what is a critical piece of this, which is being shunted to the side by almost everyone because of the pace of it, which is representation. And, in case anyone's not aware of it, we have what's been called a crisis in democracy in the Western world, certainly in New Zealand. And you look at trust, and our trust ratings at this council are incredibly low, but it doesn't just run to this council. We're worse than a lot, but we still have in New Zealand huge problems with trust, with public bodies, with media, with all sorts of agencies. But local government is a key part of the social fabric of our societies, and I think one of the biggest outcomes that we have to ensure happens whatever we decide is that the people out there who we represent feel that they have the right model to represent them, because if they don't, that's just going to get worse. And I would say my personal preference at this stage is definitely to, whatever number it is, C, to work with other councils in the Bay of Plenty and adjoining districts. And I see Thames Coromandel Council featuring as the main story in the Bay of Plenty Times right now, pushing for amalgamation options with us. And I just think we have to look at the bigger picture, the New Zealand picture. So keep in mind that we need our people, wherever they live, to be well represented locally, but we also need a good outcome for the whole of New Zealand and not to leave any stranded areas that are not going to be sustainable. So personally, I think it's a huge ask. It's not a good way to do it, but it's better to be in the running and then we can always pull out and see, hope that the government gives a good outcome if we can't, get the optimal one ourselves.
Right, Councillor Schuler.
Oh, I think I could echo most of what's been said. Good comments here from Councillor Crowther as well at the end around it may not be the best way to have approached and broached this, but certainly I think we're all, the mood of the room is that we feel we're better off to be as part of the proactive decision-making process than waiting a long time to have it done to us. I suppose the difference, we've just been through, to a degree, this process with waters. What made waters in a way easier is there was a lot of modelling and a lot of stuff that came to us to say this is a good way to do things. This one here is more coming out of general sentiment, not just here but around the country. That change is needed. It's coming from the government certainly to say that. And we're not hearing a lot of noise from the other parties against it, which suggests that it is, I wouldn't say fait accompli, but I would expect in an election year, if another party was dead against this, they would already be singing from the top of the trees. And so, yeah, I support the Mayor's comments and a great summary at the start. And this is the one we're all in a way Turkey's voting for Thanksgiving change, but it's the right vote. Thank you.
Right, thank you. And yeah, just to sum up, I think there's some good kōrero around the table, and ultimately, what is important is this is status quo is not an option. The government have made that very clear, and whether we agree or disagree with the process followed, I still think to take Councillor Rolliston's metaphor to another level, we can drive the bus or be roadkill, and we're better to drive the bus. So. I think we're going in the right direction to at least be exploring this, and as we say, if we don't find a good solution, we'll become roadkill in 2028. So, all right, now I'll put this to the council. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. That is carried. All right, now we go into the late item we had, and that is 11.11 stormwater prioritisation 26-27 annual plan, and we've got Wally, Claudia, Mike, or are you involved in this? You're just...
Kia ora tātou. So this is, what we're really trying to do here is just advance a little bit of planning work. So there's a couple of projects there that have elevated risk, and get those projects underway a little bit more quickly. It essentially advances them by 6 to 12 months for construction and completion, because they're already in the LTP anyway, and it's just around those couple of projects that have an elevated risk profile. I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
I guess the first question from me is, we're putting $250,000 to, I think it's actually Awati Place rather than Awati Road, but of an $11 million project. So what are we actually achieving with that spend?
It's just to bring forward some of the planning work so we can advance that planning a little bit further than would have otherwise been done with the budget available. And so those budgets were set 3 years ago when we did the LTP at that time, so things do change a little bit. And these are minor changes within the program, and normally they wouldn't even come to council. They would be done through our project steering group that would consider these minor rephasing of budgets at the staff level.
And then the second question, we're talking risk, and obviously, these projects that you're talking about have both got a risk to life element. Have we quantified what that risk to life is? Like how, is it a 1 in a 100 year in 100 years' time that we're going to have one issue, or is it every time that we get over 100 mil of rain, we're going to have a significant risk? I'm just trying to quantify the risk.
The risk is subjective, so it's a hard one to answer, but I'll give you the long answer if you've got a couple of minutes. It was a large piece of policy work we did with CJ's team back in 2013, 2014, and then we started doing construction works around 2015, and we've spent several tens of millions of dollars since then. It was based around what was termed an intolerable risk to life to vulnerable residents. And vulnerable could be young persons or persons that are not very firm on their feet. So it's defined where that flood risk is high or extreme. And of course, that is quite a subjective statement. And so we went to international industry guidance around that. And there was industry guidance from Canada and Australia. And we adopted that industry guidance for this program of work, just as Auckland Council adopted the same guidance for their recent floods in 2023. So we said that high risk or unacceptable risk is above 0.4 square metres per second. So that's a depth and velocity relationship. So as the water gets deeper and flows faster, obviously the risk intensifies. So we adopted 0.4 square metres per second as our standard for residential properties. So people that cannot leave their house safely without going through water like that, we would intervene, and that intervention could be we would divert that water somewhere else, or we would build a small community network, blue-green network, or we would remove the house altogether. So there was a range of interventions, and some of it also involved education, because some people could not get out the front of their property safely, but they could go out the side of their property safely. So it was about getting people onto public property like the road or a reserve area or something like that, where they did not have to traverse through that water if they did evacuate. The risk escalates if the habitable floor is wet. So if water is going into the house, and even though it's safe for those people to stay in that house, and it probably is the best place for them, but the minute they get wet feet inside the house, people tend to self-evacuate. And that's why we had that intervention. If they have to pass through that fast-flowing deep water, we would intervene, because we didn't want people to self-evacuate into a more hazardous area. So that's the way we adopted the program and developed it, and we still have 2 projects in train, and that's Awaiti Place and James Cook Resolution. So we would like to, well, they're in the LTP. We plan to progress those projects, and this minor adjustment just lets us advance the planning a little bit faster than we would do otherwise.
Yeah. So just to clarify, the really helpful explanation. Thank you. But that, what is the chances, I guess, of that, 0.4 of a metre a second? Is this in our modelling that it's going to happen once every 100 years, or is it likely to happen regularly?
So it's modelled on a 1 in 100 year event, and it's with climate change, and it's estimated around with climate change to the year 2130. So. Oh, sorry. So the ones that, it's on existing development with existing.
But
100-year.
But the model is I'm just trying to get the frequency of when you might face these conditions.
Well, it could be different for different areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But. Yeah.
So some areas may be at risk in a 20 or 50 year type event, but the modelling is 100 year. So we are intervening where there is a risk, an intolerable risk to life for a 100-year event.
Yeah, I think, this is something we need to probably look at, because that, to me, happening once in 100 years is very different to happening once every 10 years. And, I think we potentially, could accept if it was a 1 in 100 years. I know you're saying the modelling is 1 in 100 years, but I think we need to then go down and say, what is the frequency of that this may happen in that period.
Certainly. So
Yeah,
I can answer
because,
that.
because of it. Yeah. Okay.
So I was using the simplified language of 10-year, 100-year, 20-year event. What it comes down to is the annual exceedance probability.
Okay.
So the equivalence of a 1 in 100-year event is a 1% probability of it happening in any 1 year.
Yeah.
And it may happen twice in 1 year. It may happen every second year for a couple of years, but the probability is 1% in any particular year. So that is the percentages or the probability that we're working with.
Okay.
And
So if we get a 1%, we do something.
no, what we're saying is we would rather not have risk to life in a 1% probability of occurring in any particular year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we just need to work this through because, you know, we're about to make decisions on you know, other parts of a city, and we need to be very consistent in our decision making, and you know, it all comes down to what that probability is. And I know you're talking the QLRA sort of framework is, you know, 10 to the power of 4 is intolerable. Yeah, sorry, 10 to the -4, that's intolerable. You know, and I think we just need to make sure that our standards are consistent when we're looking to spend money.
So we're spending money in a stormwater program on a whole lot of things, including repeat flooding,
Yeah.
you know, in people's houses, disruption to the community around shopping centres and things like that, water quality improvements so that we're having less damaging effects on the harbour. So there's a whole range of things that we're investing on. This particular one is on risk to life. So, and I personally, I would have that at the top of my list, but that's...
Oh no, absolutely, but we just need to quantify that risk and make sure that we're being consistent and we're not spending money somewhere, you know, where we're, you know, and the example is, you know, a car crash, right? You go on the road, you accept a level of risk just going out of your house every day, and so how does this compare to that? And you know, you've just got to quantify it. And so what I'm saying, if we're protecting against the one time in 100 years that this is going to happen, and that you might have to walk through water that potentially causes risk to life, we have to take that into the equation of spending that money.
So maybe if I can also add a little bit to that discussion. So what we are currently experiencing as 1 in 100-year floods will actually happening more often, these intense rainfalls with climate change. So what is a 100-year event now is at some stage in the future a more 1 in 30-year event. So that means also rainfall events of a smaller likelihood, like a 2% or so, will just happen more often. And so these areas which have been here identified are the most at risk, where people are at risk to life as well. So it's a little bit future planning, but knowing that this risk is available and we have identified, we're actually putting council also at risk, as we have intervened in other areas in the past, and these are some of the outstanding ones we are quite aware of.
Yeah.
And so we haven't actually, so we're also aware that some future areas might be at risk with D times 3 with climate change, but that's not where we are intervening right now. So we're actually waiting until we are having a certain threshold.
All I'm saying is we need to standardise the process and have it quantified that we know where we should or shouldn't be intervening. And what I'm saying is if the chances are 1% per annum of that event happening, then potentially that doesn't reach the threshold that we should look at. And you know, this is about being consistent where we spend our money, you know, across all natural hazards, and there should be a consistent framework. I'm not arguing we're not in this meeting going to come up with that framework, but I'm saying it's a bit of work we need to do because that will help guide our investment. and we have to accept that there is risk in the community, and what is acceptable, what is not. You're saying intolerable, but we need to make sure that your intolerable is the same as what we have across council as intolerable, and if that's the case, then we look at the investment.
We've spent 2 years with CJ's team coming up with this protocol and the way of doing a completely objective assessment of these properties. We've done probably 20-odd projects around this to date. These are the last 2.
Yeah.
So we have been completely consistent in the application through all of these years, since 2013 to now. We have been completely consistent, and we've worked with industry best practice and international best practice around that. And as I said, that same industry practice has now been adopted by Auckland Council as well, following their floods. And that's why I was invited to come onto their expert panel, was because we had done it first in New Zealand.
Yeah. And so that's standardised with natural hazards across the city as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for your description, Wally, of the cubic metres and all that sort of stuff. Can you just, maybe for the layman maybe watching, pick one of those 2 projects we've been talking about and describe what we're looking at there? Is it a massive deep drain that's causing this? What are we looking at?
They're completely different. So water flows downhill, obviously, and for the James Cook resolution, it comes to a low point in the road and crosses the road, and the backwater effect from the road floods a house with fast-flowing water as it comes through. So that house needs to be removed. The other one, a Waiti Place, has got several properties that are downstream of a dam and also an open drain that then goes into a piped network. The pipe network's prone to failure because it doesn't fail, it's just too small. So it's overwhelmed. The dam needs to be increased so we can increase the size of the dam and hold more of that water back and protect those houses downstream. We're still anticipating removing 3 of those houses because when it does overtop the dam, we need to have a proper channel that will take that water away. If we don't do the dam improvements, we're looking at removing probably up to 10 houses. So we've optimised the program, if you like, with some of those community interventions around increasing the scope and the depth of that dam, and also minimise the impact on that community. We don't want to buy up a whole lot of houses and displace people because it is their community. So we do as little as possible when it comes to buying houses and removing people. We try and really optimise that to the nth degree.
Thanks for that. It's really, really good to understand what it looks like. We've had some other issues around the town where people have tried to push us in the purchase option. These ones have obviously experienced potentially dangerous situations, so it's not sort of a theoretical thing, it's a real occurrence, if you like.
Absolutely, they have flooded and they have been evacuated on many occasions. So yeah, they're very worthy of having this level of support.
Thank you for this, guys. I just noticed here in the summary too, so you're proposing that this is coming out of the Wairaki Stream culvert upgrade, which is well into construction and some risk component can be released. So there's no net overall difference. This is basically saying we're looking at another project that's bigger and working well, and there's enough spare change out of that to accelerate this. Is it that simple?
It is that simple. There's no change to the annual plan whatsoever for 27 financial year. There's no change to the overall CapEx program for stormwater, and there's no change to any OpEx requirements. So it's completely neutral. Yeah.
Rather.
Yeah, thank you, Wally and team, for bringing this through, and to Marty in his absence to thank him. I guess I'm interested in, firstly, the 2 risk to life priorities. It strikes me that we're still not really accelerating much. Could in the information we got before this, before this meeting, what I understood the sequence had to be was to do some final planning, a land purchase, then dam construction for Awaiti Place, and then for the other one, it required a much lower number. So my question is there any way to accelerate that next step? So we do the planning that you're proposing to do and bring that forward a few months, but then to actually commit some funding, if the will of the table was to do that, to actually get the land purchase done and to then enable the construction of whatever infrastructure is needed to take place potentially a year quicker than otherwise.
Yeah, so we discussed that as well. So this is the money we know for sure we can spend next year with all the preparation work to be then really ready for the following year. If we see that everything is going really smoothly, we thought if there's then another project which for whatever reason falls low, has got other delays, we then are in a really good position to potentially bring this project further forward. But we didn't want to overpromise here that we would start construction, then we're actually not starting construction that early.
The major benefits come from the dam, not from the removal of those three houses. So there's enormous benefits as soon as we do that. So the thing we need to do is get to work on the dam first. We can buy those properties in a more leisurely way, if you like, because some of that risk is minimised, but not to the 1% AEP level.
Thank you for the clarification. So if it is maybe the other way around, you do the planning, the dam construction, and then the purchase, then is what you just said, Claudia, is that possible to bring that forward, or would we need to today, if we wanted to get a crack on and start construction of something, would we need to signal that today in order to make that happen in the next financial year?
I don't think that would be required. So if the reality is that there's always some changes throughout the year, and most of these changes are of smaller scale, and that's probably more done on officers level, where we say there's a little bit of budget here which we don't need, but we can bring this project forward without changing the program. And I don't think actually we need to have that agreed here today. I think there's enough flexibility in the program.
That's great. Now, through the chair, I've got a couple of other questions. So in the briefing we had some months ago on the depth times velocity ISP sites, it talked about 3 locations in Brookfield, Darras, Barossa Way and Herronvale Way. And my understanding is that they were still, they've been scoped but no decision-making on the details of the upgrade, so we don't have prices for those. But along with some other locations around town, they had met the threshold of the integrated stormwater program depth times velocity. So what is the approach there? Because I hear from people, and I'm particularly targeting, I've been to all 3, but particularly targeting the Darras Barossa as opposed to the Herronvale, and whether that can be brought forward in some way so that there is actually planning done so that we know for the long-term plan what is required to invest in that area.
So that is in the LTP already, and it's in the general program of work. So there were 2 tranches. There were these high-profile, the high risk to life, the intolerable risk to life, and then there was a second tranche, and what you're referring to is the second tranche. And that's where this fast-flowing water could be within 8 metres of a dwelling. So not necessarily has that direct impact, but some of it may just be education in some of those cases. But yes, there is some interventions planned there. And we've got 17 million in the LTP for the Otomotai and surround areas for stormwater intervention works, 17 million across the 10 years. Most of that sits in the 32-33 financial year for the actual investment. And the first few years is there's quite a bit of planning, a couple of minor projects, but planning and getting the costing and also looking at how we optimise those programs of work. Because sometimes the private property owner needs to do a little bit, and sometimes there's us doing community interventions. So we want to make sure we get the right balance.
Just respond. I mean, yeah, I understand they're in the LTP, but I guess my personal view is that we may be leaving that a bit late because homes are flooding in that area, and my understanding of the analysis was that yes, we were prioritising loss to life, but the ones that didn't meet the highest priority 1 threshold, but were still above the priority 3, like in other words, this group of priority 2, that there was still, we weren't ruling out injuries, potential loss of life, but of really vulnerable people, but also damage to property. And there is ongoing damage to property. There are fire brigade brought in, multiple times into that area to try and, we've got another event coming up tomorrow, possibly the same kind of thing. So I guess the question is, if we did a small amount of planning this year, could we actually understand where to target you've said the Otamoto investment in 32, 33, but the same question for other areas. Could we actually have a better understanding for the LTP as opposed to just putting in lump sums into the LTP?
Yes, so currently we actually have got quite a large planning program going, and the Davisville Wasaway one is currently being looked at right now. So it is already people dedicated to it to actually look at that specific area, and together with a lot of other areas around Otamotai. But then also we did a couple of investment along Papamoa in the Te Papa area and also in the west of Tauranga. So we actually have got different set of people looking at different areas right now. And so they are looking where we have got easy options, more difficult options where we need to maybe do more investigation, looking where do we actually find some good cost benefits projects. And then they're either being identified as further investigation or being kind of earmarked. This should actually be carried on, and some work should be done as soon as the construction budget is available. And by doing this, we also have got the advantage if there are any other projects coming along from transport or open spaces, that we can do it at the same time if they want to maybe carry out some changes in that area.
Final question, and thank you for answering them all. The stormwater quality program, so just switching track a bit, I see S Street Reserve and Coach Drive there. Now, Coach Drive goes into a special ecological area, so the highest rating in the city, and very special bird life and all sorts. So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that, as the name suggests, there is an issue with stormwater quality that could be impinging on that natural environment. So can you maybe talk, you've put to be confirmed 26, 27 for that one, and S Street Reserve 27 with a question mark. Like how likely are you to be able to invest what looks like $2 million to sort out the Coach Drive issue in the next financial year?
Yes, so our thinking is quite advanced in that space, and the trigger for this project are actually exceedances we have monitored in the water quality discharge as part of our network discharge consent. So we really should intervene in that area. So we looked at more at source, where it might actually come from, but it's very difficult to define. So actually at the bottom of the catchment seemed to be the most sensible approach. And we know there's a local reserve, so we will work with our Space and Places team. But we still have to go out to the community, as there would be a potential change of how that reserve looks like. And so we are in the process of actually planning that process. And the question mark around it is, because we still need to engage with a range of people, it's difficult to say how quickly we would implement it. So if it would be just us making a decision and going in and doing it, that's one thing, but we need to just be cognizant that there might be other uses as well for that area.
Through the chair, just I guess the same question as before then, would we need to do anything today to ensure that if you did go through the full engagement or consultation and did want to move ahead with that, would we have to have acted today or to specifically bring in extra funding, or could that be done as part of your funded program?
Yeah, no, so there is actually budget available to implement stormwater water quality projects next financial year. And at the moment we have got multiple ones we are looking at, as there are some uncertainties with them if we really would deliver them. But we hope that at least one of them would really go ahead, or even two of them, yeah.
Councillor Baker's happy to move. It's a receiving report. In a second, yep. Any discussion?
Yeah, just quickly, thanks staff for bringing it. I enjoyed the robustness of that discussion. I learned heaps, and it'll probably be good with the whole risk to life conversations that we're having to pick that up collectively somewhere. If it's not picked up in audit and risk, then maybe as a workshop or whatever. But my brother used to live in Awaiti Place, and we took our boogie boards often when it pissed down with rain and used it in the drains, which was probably not healthy, but great fun. So good to see that there's a bit of aroha given there and some future proofing involved. Yeah, thanks for bringing it to the table. Appreciate your work, staff.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, you can imagine I'm very grateful for this one. I've been keen to get this for a long, long time. I guess what drove me to request a paper like this is that I feel this is quite important. I hear your comments, Mr. Mayor. I think they're very relevant to the big picture in terms of the risk analysis that we do. I think in this case, until proven otherwise, I'm very prepared to take the robust work that I've looked into as much as I can of staff and elected members for that matter in the previous decade, because I think this is one of those things where the council has got a good reputation in waters, has been seen as a leader in stormwater, has actually taken best practice, has looked at risk from a evidence-based point of view. My layperson's understanding is that the risks are higher for something like this, where people are, if you remember yesterday's workshop, my colleagues, where you have the time that you spend in a location as a significant factor that changes the risk analysis, and people are typically in their home for longer than they are at a specific point on a mountain or on a street or whatever they're doing, so that the risk analysis for a particular location changes drastically because of that. And I think everything I've seen and read is that these are high risk in a relative sense. It doesn't mean it's likely to kill people every year. It means that there is a significant enough risk that it wasn't acceptable to the council back then, in whatever year Wally said it was, and I don't think it should be now. And so I'm very keen to have staff interpret this as liberally as they can, and to find whatever funding is in the capital expenditure program on top of what we're doing in our fairly token gesture, I think, in terms of numbers today, where we're just swapping out 300,000. But I think the bigger picture is not the specifics of what's in the report, but the signal that I hope we can send, which is to actually prioritise these risk of loss of life projects, and also to take care of the pollution into our special ecological reserve, which is a real treasure for the city. And to think that we don't do something in the next year for that would be, for me, as a local there who uses that all the time, it'd be really sad. So I hope staff can pull off what they described and get a lot of those projects cracking. So thank you.
Councillor Roseburn.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I'm always concerned when we start playing around inside our staff matrix for prioritisation. My biggest concern, and to quote a colleague, we should keep our commitment to our community. Some years ago, a democratic elected council made a commitment to a group of people on Carmichael Road to fix their wastewater program. We still, as a council, haven't done that. That's reputational risk. That's also a risk to health and hygiene. We need to prioritise things, allow our staff to do it within the scope of budget that we give them. If we want to do everything, we need to give our staff more budget. It's quite a simple calculation. We've sat here today and discussed pushing rates down. Jobs or projects that we've indicated we may do will drop off the bottom if we keep pushing the rates down. So it's a very fine balancing act between what we prioritise as a risk, either reputational, to health or to life, and to do it in a way that's done professionally and removing our emotions from the discussion. It's based on what we think should be done. Emotion shouldn't drive our decision-making process. It should be done to the cold hard facts that are in front of us. And for me personally, the wastewater program on Carmichael Road is a far greater risk to the health of the people on Carmichael Road and to the reputation risk to the council. So, yeah, although
Right, any other discussion? Otherwise, I'll put this to the council. We're receiving the report Stormwater Prioritisation 26-27 Annual Plan. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. That now ends our public session today. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder to go into publicly excluded. Councillor Taylor, Councillor